And good evening. You are listening to In Tune to Nature on WFG Atlanta, your station for progressive information. And remember, as you listen to our program, that the views and opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of WFG, its board, staff, or volunteers. I am Sonia Schwartz and will be your host this evening. And we have a guest tonight joining us on the phone, Philippa Kingsley, who is an animal communicator, a certified vortex healer, a spirit medium, and the author of Rising Above Grief for People and Pets. Welcome to In Tune to Nature, Philippa.
Hello, good evening, Sonia. Good to be here.
Thank you for joining us. And I forgot to mention that you also live in Atlanta.
I do.
So you are a local personality. Philippa, thank you so much for joining us. And first, maybe you can tell our listeners about your personal experience and what led you to the spiritual place where you are today.
Well, it's a process. Nothing ever happens 1, 2, 3. There's many, many steps to becoming who we are meant to be in our lives on a spiritual level. I was originally a chef for a long, long time, and I specialized in Thai cuisine. However, I was ending up cooking animals, which quite honestly I didn't want to do anymore. So I'm vegan now, and also I've always very much been interested in spirituality. I studied Buddhism for 10 years, and I've been studying vortex healing for 10 years, and I've also been studying mediumship. So it's been a whole process, a path. It's a path of letting go of the old conditioning, the old way of thinking, and just being true to yourself. And that's basically how I am, true to myself. I live true to myself.
And you mentioned vortex healing, and I'm sure that, people are not very familiar with vortex healing, so maybe you could expand on that.
I will. Well, vortex healing is not new agey. It's actually been around for 6,000 years, which is a long time, many moons.
Yes.
And basically, it works at the mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, and karmic levels. So all our issues are stuck in the cellular system. So that's the level that I'm working at. I'm channeling energy from the divine source of the lineage. And it helps people. That's what I use for people. That's what I use for pets as well. So with animals, I use animal communication when they have issues. I also use vortex healing as well. And with humans, I use vortex healing. And it helps because it gets to the root cause of people's issues, of the stuff that's going on in people's lives. You know, not the story or the drama of, he said this, she said that, all that sort of stuff. Because most people's issues are fear-based, fear of change, fear of moving forward, fear, or issues of self-worth. Do I love myself? Do I like myself? Do I deserve? Or issues of forgiveness. And in life, you have to forgive yourself before you can forgive anyone else or anything else. So it's a whole process. It's deep work, and it really shifts. It shifted it for me, as I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today if it wasn't vortex healing. I'm a good example.
Yeah, perfect example.
Yeah.
So when you are an animal communicator as well, so when did you start communicating with animals? And did you start training for it?
I did. I first started, in fact, my dogs trained me first. So I had English Cocker Spaniels called Bogey and Cosmo, who are now in spirit. But anyway, they are the ones that actually I would just connect with them, and it was just a knowing. Because basically, animal communication is telepathic communication. Anyone can do it if they really stop and take time out and listen. And when they passed, I was actually in a bookstore, and a couple of books fell off the shelf, and one book stood out to me, so I trained. I've been training for animal communication 3 years, basically, and with a very, very good, well-known international animal communicator, who's, anyways, in America. And it was amazing. It was like sort of formalizing what I knew, and obviously there are certain techniques and different things and different levels of everything, but if your heart is in the right place, and you're open to hear what animals have to say, what they think and what they feel, it's the most beautiful thing, that they feel they're understood. And this doesn't just relate to, our pets that are in our pets, as we call them. It also relates to all animals, the farm animals. because I had the opportunity to go to Woodstock Farm Animal Sanctuary up in New York, upstate New York, and they're actually moving nearer to the city, New York City, very shortly, in a few months' time. And basically I was doing healing on pigs with the founder of Woodstock Farm Animal Sanctuary. And when you see animals, it doesn't matter what they are, whether they have 4 legs, 2 legs, furry or feathered. Basically they're all sentient beings. All of us, we all are, and they have feelings. They're feeling of happiness, sadness, fear, pain, the same as we do. They're no different to anyone else. We think we're different from everyone else. We think we're different from animals, but then we're not. We truly aren't. It's just taking time out to realize that we all have feelings. Anything that's walking on this earth has feelings and thoughts.
And so you have been able to communicate with the animals on the farm, but there were animals who were lucky enough to be saved from, that gruesome death just to please a few pallets of, human beings. So I was wondering if you had any experience when you had to deal with an animal who was really, a farm animal or a wild animal, totally distressed and knowing what his or her fate was going to be, and what was your experience, if that ever happened to you?
Well, there was actually an incident. It's quite interesting, actually. This happened when I was a chef. I won't mention the company. I was invited to be a consultant, and I was flown out there with 4 other chefs, 4 other males.
Of course.
Anyway, and basically we were taken into where the animals were going to be slaughtered. And it was a whole few days there. They were sort of whining and dining us and talking to us. They wanted our opinions on things. But basically, I've never forgotten this. This was a few years ago. And basically, we were shown the process of animals being slaughtered. And actually there were ducks, as it happens. And I connected with this one duck. And I've never forgotten that. And I didn't discuss it with anybody, obviously, at that company, because that's not where they're coming from. And it was just, the duck was saying, what's happening? What's happening to me? What is it? What's happening to me? And that came through me, and it was devastating at that time. It was totally, totally devastating. So this whole process of letting go about animals and how they are and what they feel, everything, when they're rescued, it's beautiful. How wonderful. But obviously they need a lot of help when they've been rescued. They know they're in a wonderful environment. They can see that. But they still have all the residue of all the fear and all the stuff. It takes time for them to unwind on every level within their whole nervous system. Same as, when we have different issues and different things that happen, we're uptight, we're tense, whatever the situation is, it's just letting go. And it's letting go when they know that they're safe. And that's what Vortex Healing does, because it works at a deep core level, the issues. It's basically, it's a healing path, but it's also a path to awakening. And that's what's so beautiful about it. And you can say, what's awakening? Awakening is pure divine love, basically. And that's what we all are as humans, and as people, and as animals. We're love.
And what I noticed with the animals, I've been to farm sanctuary, many times, and these animals are so happy where they are, and there is no anger, no more resentment. There's full of love and forgiveness, which in our case, in the case of the human animal, it's very difficult for us to forgive.
Very much so, very much so. If people forgive more and let go of it's all ego. It's ego that stops people. If we think, if human beings think they're above anybody else, we think they're better, that comes from ego. So it's a question of going inside, going within to find out, who you really are at a core level inside you, your soul, the inner part, the inner essence of who you are. Not what you do, who you are, what you feel, what you think. Just a knowing and just an awareness of life, and every animal has life and wants to live. And there's so many wonderful, wonderful choices out there now, not just, vegetarian food, but also vegan, which is becoming much more mainstream than it ever was. It's amazing, actually. It's a whole process of awareness of waking up, seeing what's, really in your food, and what happens just seeing your food on your plate, or otherwise in just on a supermarket packet. You don't think to what all the marketing hype that goes with everything. Cows frolicking around and
yes,
on the grass.
And of course, people like to live in denial.
Totally. But there's sometimes there's chinks in the armor. All you have to do is sow a seed. It's like sowing that seed, and that seed may take time to grow to fruition, so it actually blooms and blossom. But once you've sown that seed, then it maybe something else down the road will just trigger something to help them wake up to see exactly what's in things. And also knowing, a lot of genetically modified products, you need to really know what's in your food, where your food's coming from, and what you eat. And all of us, we are what we eat. So that's really, really important. And also the spiritual vibration of what you put in yourself. Not putting in the fear of an animal. Animals know when they're going to be slaughtered. They know.
Yes, yeah, unfortunately, yes.
They do know, And people can be blind and say, oh, well, no, and justify everything. But animals know. And I always say, try and put yourself in a situation. How would you feel? And people don't think of it on that level. They just see it's themselves.
We treat them as commodities. This is why we can eat them. It's ease our conscience. I mean, you are dealing with a commodity, so you can do anything. Yeah. And that has been done. I mean, I like to talk about the Holocaust, but it was the same when you treated Jews as a commodity.
Totally.
The first thing they got was a number on their arm, so they lose their personality. They are not a person anymore. They are just a number.
Yeah. It's the same thing, and then we get on to other things. We think, I call this a Holocaust for animals. A lot of people don't like to hear that, because they say, well, I was born Jewish, actually. It doesn't matter what I am now. But anyway, so I understand all of that. So, but the point is, if you look at slavery, getting onto that, this is what we're doing. We're enslaving animals, basically. It's a mix. We're enslaving animals, and there's, things have changed, and on a vast and industrial scale.
And it's away from us, so we don't know what's happening. So that also is easier for people, to ignore it totally. So we know that we human animals grieve, and if we had the pleasure to live with companion animals, we have also witnessed their grief when they lose a mate or they lose, their guardian. But what people don't always realize is that, non-human animals have emotions. They all grieve for their loved ones who have departed. And wild and captive animals have feelings. I mean, you see elephants who are crying, over the death of one of their member of their families. Gorillas, chimpanzees, especially the one in labs. And I like in your book that chapter when you talk about the bullfrog that you found next to your pond and who has just lost his or her mother. Would you like to tell us the story? I just, I had tears in my eyes when I read that.
Okay. Basically, yes. The basic story was there was a frog outside. My husband actually came to see me. He said, "Look, come out to the garden and see this." This was in August. This was years ago. And there was this frog, and it had its mother's torso was there. So what had happened? A hawk had taken it and dropped it, and it had its arm on its mother. It wouldn't move. It literally would not move, and it was boiling hot. We didn't know what was going to happen with it, because obviously frogs shouldn't be out of water for very long. And it was grieving. It was totally grieving. And eventually my husband buried that part of it a long time ago. He buried that part of it. But then the frog came back later on, and I sat there, and it said to me, and I tuned in as an animal communicator, and we just stared at each other for ages. It basically said to me that, to show us what we feel, what emotions, what everything, how we are. And it's the awareness that hit me of basically that we all have feelings. It doesn't matter who or what. I would like to share one other thing also, apart from in the book. This is very recently, actually. I have chickens. We have 6 rescue chickens.
Lucky you.
Yeah. But anyway, and I was still eating chicken at that time. But I said, having the chickens, I'm totally vegan, because I can't eat my family. And the chickens are family. They all have personalities. They all have characters, the whole thing. And I actually wrote something and shared it to my mailing list, and also I'd like to share it with everybody as well. And it was the jewel that was Jessica. And she taught me again the whole thing that animals have feelings. They all have personalities. People think, what a nice chicken or a nice animal. But when you actually see them, you're in contact with animals, then you realize they all have feelings. It's not just our companion animals that have feelings. Love is love. Feelings and emotions are all the same, whatever the animal It doesn't make any difference. And everything that happens in loss and grief, they grieve, they care, you know, and they don't want to lose their lives.
And if you are just tuning in, you are listening to In Tune to Nature on WIFG Atlanta. And we have the pleasure of talking with Philippa Kingsley, an animal communicator, vortex healer, spirit medium, and the author of the book Rising Above Grief for People and Pets. And Philippa, do you have your favorite animal communication story? The one probably that touched you the most, apart from the ones that you have just narrated to us?
Well, there's another story which is about a parrot, actually. Yeah, it's very interesting. This is quite recent. This was last year. I went to see a client who told me about her parrot, and she'd grown up with parrots. She had this parrot that she'd rescued. She had him for a long time. Prior to that, he'd been abused. He'd been, as a teenage boy, he was in another home, and the home he was in before that, they just didn't care about him. So basically, this parrot was her connection. They were connected. This whole parrot was totally connected. But she was pregnant, so he felt very upset about that on one level. And also, there was a lot of the family dynamics. She got married, I hasten to add.
Yeah.
She got married too.
Doesn't help.
I'd mentioned that. En passant, as they say.
Yes.
And basically, they got a parrot friend to the parrot. But basically, the parrot became very, very aggressive and everything, and he was upset. He was grieving. He was upset about the whole situation because the whole dynamics in the family had changed. So what happened with that was that they invited me in, and I sat there, and I sat there with the client, and we sat there in the room where both the parrots were, and I connected with him. And I didn't get close to him because you have to respect animals how they feel. They have to come to you energetically, spiritually, and they have to tune into who you are. And animals do that far more than humans, actually. They just tune in. And I told him that I was there to help him as well. And at the end of everything, he's so much better. He felt happier and safer and all the rest of it. I told him he was still loved. You know, things hadn't changed. He had his parrot friend, and he'd become very... he didn't want anyone else near his parrot friend, basically, that was there in the house as well. So it was the whole dynamics of everyone's world had changed. So when you realize what you can do just by talking and by communicating and healing, and I also did vortex healing on him. So it's both. It's not just communication; it's the healing part as well. So that was actually beautiful, and she contacted me later and said that he's much happier. He's fine. He's good. So that was a recent story. And the other thing I like to do for people is also to connect with animals in spirit.
Oh, yes.
As a medium. Yeah, because a lot of people, not everyone wants to do that, and it's everybody's choice. Whatever one wants to do is fine. It's basically and I did this myself, is that basically, when a beloved companion animal passes, it's an emotional devastation, it's an emotional earthquake that happens. Your whole world drops out, and with an animal it's slightly different. I can't say it's better or worse, it's not that, it's just different. Because animals are pure unconditional love, all of them, pure unconditional love. We humans are not.
No, we have noticed that.
But we're not.
There is a lot of room for improvement, yeah.
Oh, I'd agree, yeah. 100%.
We have to work on that.
Yeah, definitely. So basically, with that, it's to be able to help people if they choose to, they want to connect with their animal and spirit. And just to know that their companion animal, their pet, is okay. And they are, because when you leave your physical body, you are okay. It's we who are left behind grieving that are not okay.
Exactly, we need the support. And it's very helpful during, your grieving period to be able to connect with, the past animals who have shared your life.
Totally, because even though the love is forever, that's because love is eternal. It's the physical form that we find difficult. The physical form is no longer there. The love is eternal. The love is forever, but not the physical form. And that's what's so difficult to deal with, And that's what I've written in this book. And this book is not just, it came through me. It's everything I've experienced myself, everything channeled through me on the book. And I wrote about my father and about the story of my journey with my dogs, who I adored. They were my children. But I've also written a chapter in the book which is called Helpful Healing Hints, for people. Helpful healing tools, actually, because everybody deals with grief in different ways. Not everybody wants to do it the same way because it's not cookie cutter. So I've written a whole load of different things as to what you can do, how you can deal with it, to honor your companion animal that shared your life and share the love, basically. And the book, it's not a sad book. It's very moving. It gets to the core essence of what it is, basically. There's a lot of spiritual stuff in there as well, spiritual things. But it's really the story about love, caring, and sharing. And that, at the end of the day, is the most important thing that we've forgotten about: love, caring, and sharing. And there's grief that, which is devastating at the time, but you will rise above grief. Things change, and it's important to honor the grief, but you have to go through it. It's a process. You can't just blank it off.
No, because that can lead to illness and, even more grief later on in life. So, and you have a chapter dealing with a child's grief, and, that's even more difficult because I think children are more affected, and it's much more difficult to make them understand the process of grieving. Would you like to expand on that?
Yeah, I would. Basically, with children, because children cry, obviously they don't let their emotions, they let everything out. However, if say, for example, they've lost, somebody that they've really loved, a mother, a father, or something like that, it's devastating. And so the parent that's often left behind tries to put a stiff upper lip, as I call it, very English, stiff upper lip. So basically, they don't necessarily want their children to understand their own grieving process. But a child needs to talk about their own feelings, their own emotions. They don't want everything blanked off to pretend everything's okay, because it's not okay for them. Their life has changed as well. So it's important to maybe honor what's going on in the child's life. How I deal with it, you can't just, obviously, dealing with an adult, you'd ask them questions and things like that. A child, you can't. You have to do it very slowly, very gradually, like play games and put out a little story or something like that, or how they feel, and then change the subject. You can't have a great big long intense conversation with a child. But a child needs to know that basically that it's still loved, and to have and also the fact that it's okay for them to grieve, that it's okay for the parents, for example, that they have left, to basically grieve all together. And that's very important, not just sort of blank it all off and say, get on with it type of thing, because that's not what it's like. It's important to go within, and it's all about love. It's all about love. And the child will need to talk about whoever it's lost.
Yes, and sometimes we tend to forget that, unfortunately. But time is running out, Philippa. I mean, such a fascinating subject. We couldn't talk about it forever. Unfortunately, our program is only 30 minutes. I know. Would you like to give us your website in case our listeners would like more information? First about your book, Rising Above Grief, and also, about VortexHealing and all we can do to try to improve our lives.
Right. Basically, my website is Healing People and Pets, www.healingpeopleandpets.com, and it's a very comprehensive website. I have a whole portion there about animals, about vortex healing. It explains the basics of vortex healing in terms that, people can really understand. It's not in a very deep, esoteric way. If you want to learn more about it, go on to vortexhealing.org. But I would suggest you start with my website.
Okay. Step
to make it easy for people. It's very important to make things easy to explain to people, because otherwise people don't know. And it's, as I say, there's a whole big depth about animals. I also teach meditation as well. And the book, Rising Above Grief, you can buy it on my website. You scroll down on the home page. There's various different things of me talking on the website. You'll see the different events and different things that I talk at. And you can buy it through my website or at Amazon.com, www.amazon.com.
Okay, great, Philippa. So thank you so much for joining us tonight on In Tune to Nature. And I'm sure that we will have the opportunity to talk with you again in the near future. And or to come and to one of your lectures and or one of your programs.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and have a great evening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.